devastated that he has been such a victim of abuse while doing what he loves most. Was football worth it, he thought to himself? He had an idea.
How you ended up writing a book at the age of just 11 years old.
Experienced racism in the school canteen. I'm a kid in the year above me.
Did you ever think that this would be something that they would have to deal with at such a young age?
Yes and no. In that, I didn't feel like I'd be at 10. And that's why I love the mission of the book, is because it normalises a conversation. You make it open so that those things don't fester. It can be used for black families, white families, mixed race families, any race.
So you've got 2 children in academy football.
Yes. So they're 2 out of my 4 children, my eldest 2. And I want to say that having academy footballers takes logistics and parenting and juggling to a whole nother level. But yeah, it's a journey. We love it. I love being a football mum.
It's really, really inspiring, Jeriah. You're a footballer and author. Would you also say that you're a businessman as well? Jenny and Jeriah, welcome to Project Footballer. So pleased to have you with us.
Thank you for having us.
Welcome, guys. Welcome.
Thank you.
Jeriah, we have had many talented and famous footballers on this podcast, but you are the first academy player and author to be on the show. We're privileged to have you with us and so excited to hear your amazing story. To give some context to our audience, Jeriah has written an educational book called Back in Time, which was inspired by something that happened to him at school. Jeriah, could you tell us how you ended up writing a book at the age of just 11 years old?
So as an academy footballer, we have the Young Writers Award, which is for all the clubs for all the Cat 1 clubs and Premier League football teams. You submit a story and then they will see if you win and stuff. However, I won. Yeah, so it was a very good achievement. And I
Clap for Jeriah, come on.
Well done.
Well done. Good job.
So basically, I experienced racism in the school canteen. And I felt, after I've already won the Premier League Young Writers Award, that was the moral of my story, racism, after I experienced it in the school canteen from a kid in the year above me. And I feel like parents can talk to their children about racism in an easier way, through books, through podcasts and loads of other things. And I feel it was really good for me to write the book.
Wow, that's incredible. All right, well, would you mind explaining a little bit more around what happened in the canteen, if that's okay?
So the kid was told me something that wasn't very nice.
Right.
And he thought it would put a stop to it. Where he thought it came from was probably he saw it on social media or YouTube, and he thought that it was okay to say. Right. And I felt it wasn't very good that he said that. But I didn't actually know what the word meant.
Right.
But my friend that was next to me told me that it was racist.
Right. Jenny, what do you remember about that incident?
Yeah. So Jeriah wasn't actually the one that told me about the incident. So this friend that he is referring to, he had told his mother that Jeriah had experienced this in the school canteen. So she got in contact with me to say, oh, have you heard that this happened in the school canteen? And Jeriah was a victim of racial abuse, basically. Jeriah had Brighton that day. So straight from school, he had gone to training. So I didn't see him until maybe 8:30 p.m. And so obviously I was like, I want to know exactly what's going on and find out what's going on. So I was angry. But I wanted to see if Jeriah would tell me first. And so I'd asked him, how was school? And he didn't say anything about it. So I probed a bit deeper, and I
This
said,
was
"What happened?"
after his training.
After training. So he had
Brighton.
so this had happened at lunchtime. So he'd
Yeah.
had the rest of the school day.
Right.
He had training at Brighton. So lots of things had happened in
Yep.
between.
Yep.
And so I specifically asked him what happened at lunchtime. And ironically, it was the day he had his Christian Union Christmas party. It was last year,
Yeah.
December. So he was going to like a Christian Union event, and it happened just before. So he told me about that, and I said, okay, but what happened before? And I think it was kind of like, how do you know? I said, I know everything. But then he explained to me everything that happened, how he also retaliated, how his friend was very upset. His friend was very upset about it. They did tell, I think, a member of staff, but the school hadn't contacted me at that point. So I kind of took a report and sent an email to the school saying this has happened at around approximately this time, etc., and then that's how it all transpired. And then the school got in contact the next day.
Okay. And you have actually become friends with the boy since?
Yeah, he's in the year above
Yeah.
school A's football team. He's their goalkeeper. And yeah, I've forgiven him. And, yeah.
Cool.
And I also kind of forgot at the same time.
Okay.
And also didn't want to say what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when I came back from Brighton, I was like, because I had so many things that I was like, I'm not quite sure what you're talking about. Then when she said, when I was eating, because we have a 2-hour lunch period
Yeah.
in the first hour.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I was wondering, how do you know what happened? Yeah.
I think it's such a powerful message because you did say you were angry and whatnot, but to be able for an 11-year-old
He was
young
10
man
at the time.
or 10 at the time to be able to say he's forgiven, and to do this on the back of it, I think that's the best possible way to react to something like that. It's so powerful. So
One of the conversations that we had, Jenny, where you said that now with a lot of the promotion of the book and publicity about this, and this is part of the story that obviously inspired it, but Jeriah was nervous maybe about how that boy, that one incident, how that would be perceived going forward for him. And that's why you made sure that you wanted to make us aware that it has been forgiven, and now this is about educating other parents and children.
Definitely. And how I know that Jeriah has forgiven him, not because of what I've told him to do, but the day before the Premier League came to his school as part of his award for winning the competition with the trophy, he said to me, I'm really excited, but I don't want the boy to feel bad. And he brought that up. So that's something that was on his mind. Whereas, some children might have or adults be thinking about, the trophy's coming to the school. How does that make me feel? Amazing. But he was actually thinking, I don't want this to be, an event that makes him take him back to that place and make him feel bad. So yeah, I think it's really important because even for adults, it can be difficult to forgive something like this that's happened. And so I am proud of Jeriah more so that he literally has forgiven and has let it go.
That's cool.
yeah, really good.
And so the incident happened, the back of last year?
December 6th, 2023.
Okay. And how long after that did you then create the story?
I created the story, I think it was in April.
When I tried to explain to Jeriah, do you know what this meant, what this boy said, and the reason why I need to raise it with the school, because Jeriah was like, it's fine, I said, no, this needs to be educated. This boy is an opportunity to educate him and the school about how to deal with this. And Jeriah said to me, actually, I know that Vinicius Jr., I think he's experienced racism before, and I know how he's dealt with it. I think he said he's kind of ignored it, so I'm gonna deal with it how Vinicius Jr. dealt with it. And I've never spoken to Jeriah about racism, but he had heard about it through Vinicius Jr.'s experiences and what he'd probably seen on YouTube or news about Vinicius Jr. And so that was his first experience or knowledge of what racism was, and he was able to link that with his own experience. And so it's also important that the theme of the writing competition happened to be heroes. So all the kids had to write a story about heroes. And so for Jeriah was writing about Vinicius Jr. as his hero in his situation, but then also Laurie Cunningham being a hero for Vinicius Jr. So, yeah.
it's really hard to get in the heads of people that have these attitudes. Because one of the things I was wanting to maybe ask and maybe have a conversation about is trying to, like, that boy that said what he said, have you thought, like, why did that come in his head? You mean earlier on you said it might have been influenced by social media?
Yeah.
What? Yeah. What is going on in people's heads that they think like this? Have you given thought on it?
Well, I think if you don't know what it means, then you shouldn't say it at all. You should figure out what it means first. And I feel like he might have known what it meant, or he might have just said it because someone else has said it. He's heard someone else say it before, or it's been influenced by his by what he's seen on YouTube, social media, and all these other platforms.
Have you ever experienced any racism, Marcelo, growing up in more in a football sense? I don't know.
You know, I don't think so, but it's very easy to have the same reaction as Jeriah, where you're playing and it just goes over your head, and you don't have time to sort of reflect on it, and maybe actually that's not right. So it might have happened, but I can't, at the top of my head, I don't think so.
And what do you think in academy football? Do you think that it goes on the pitch or in training sessions?
I'd like to think no, but the reality is that it probably does. You know, you might go to certain places where, the demographic looks a bit different, and people might have these sort of reactions. You know, even in school football, you know, you might play a cup game very far away, out of London or wherever, and you might hear some comments where it's like, oh, not sure how that sits, but it's not great, but it's unfortunately it happens, doesn't it?
Jenny, were you shocked that it happened to Jeriah? Did you ever think that this would be something that they would have to deal with? He would have to deal with at such a young age.
Yes and no.
Okay.
So no to the age of 10. I didn't think it would be at year 6, 10 years old. But I knew that having black boys, at some stage, I'll have to have a conversation with them to say, you can't wear a hoodie going to Tesco's. The bodyguard will follow you. Like, I knew that I would have to have a conversation with him at some stage that you're cute now, but at a certain stage, I don't know when it will happen, but you're not going to be cute anymore. And I was very aware of that. I think more so since the whole Black Lives Matter and since COVID, more even apparent. So yes and no in that regard. I didn't feel like it'd be at 10. And that's why I love the mission of the book, is because it normalizes a conversation, because it's about a sports fiction book that you can have with a child from 7, where it normalizes the conversation. So if they do experience something, they can articulate what it is. Jeriah didn't really understand what it was. But then also you make it open so that those things don't fester. And when you see it, you spot it.
Yeah.
And when we were preparing for this, one of the questions I think you put, has Jeriah experienced racism on the pitch? And he gave me a surprising answer because I wasn't aware. But Jeriah, have you experienced racism on the pitch?
Well, I have, but it wasn't as big as the one in the canteen, because I didn't even have time to say, why did you say that? And because I've already experienced it before, I know not to retaliate.
So when did it happen?
So in under 11 nationals, there was a West Ham kid that said something mean to me. And I was going to say, oh, why did you say that? But before I could say anything, he was like, actually, I shouldn't have said that. I'm sorry. Please forgive me.
And I think you said you told your teammates.
Yeah, I told my teammates. And then I kind of forgotten since. Yeah. So
that's at the Premier League Nationals under 11 competition, and it's to a London team. So it's not even just going far. And so one of the things that I will be doing in the new year is also using my network within the Premier League, and also Kick It Out as well. I've got a connection there as well around even this book. I genuinely believe that they should buy it and give it to academy players when they come in under nines, so that they can start having that conversation. All the clubs, it should be a gift to their player, so that these things we can actually tackle it at that level, because that was in Loughborough in the Premier League environment where he experienced that as he was 10 then, because he's one of the youngest in his year. So yeah.
So in London, it can be very common for whole teams to now be predominantly black mixed race players, where white players can be the minority. Do you think there can be examples where white players might be suffering with racist abuse?
So I think racism, we need to understand, can happen on either side. So because we talk about racism, we're not always talking about black people being the victim. A white person can, of course, be the victim. Wherever the minority is, children or adults can use a characteristic which is different from themselves to make someone feel a certain way. So, of course, it can happen. And I think that's why the book is great, because it can be used for black families, white families, mixed race families, any race, where they can discuss these themes. It's not limited to a race, and I think that's important. So of course it can happen where someone can be picked on or isolated because of the colour of their skin, because it's an easy target. However, I do feel also that in the football industry and structurally, as you know, footballers move up the ranks and even out of football but still in football, what is the structural setup? Where is there institutional discrimination or not? So yes, we can look at the grassroots level as we have discussed, but we also need to look at, as a player and players move up the ranks, what does the pitch look like also at the top? And if players are falling out, why are they falling out? And I hope that makes sense. Does that make sense? And actually, I was speaking to a coach who made me aware of, there's actually a stereotype that black players won't tend to play in the middle as they grow older, because their football IQ might not be as high as another race. So black football players will tend to play on the wing or at the back or forward, but not necessarily in the middle. It's more rare, but that's a stereotype again. And so that could be a stereotype that, say, an under 15s coach has or under 21s coach has, as a player is trying to progress, where maybe in under 9s they were playing in the middle, they don't think that they can because of an institutional stereotype. So it's very complex. It's not just, you know, the abuse or that can happen, but just like in any organisation and any industry, institutionally, is there racism or discrimination that is institutional?
Yeah.
And that's also something that football has to deal with and understand and discuss and talk about.
I wonder, with families with black heritage, the parents might be more aware of racism to then start the process of having a conversation with their child. Earlier on, I asked you, were you preparing Jeriah for racism? And you said that you were prepared for it, but you didn't think it was going to happen so early. But it was on your mind. Whereas white families, because historically they haven't necessarily been a minority, they wouldn't necessarily feel that it's such, and I'm generalizing, but it could be that they wouldn't proactively have conversations with their children at a young age to educate them about racism, maybe. I don't know how much of it goes on in schools, but then that lack of education and conversation then can create situations where racism occurs.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's probably the case. I think black families are probably, especially other boys, you are probably thinking about it is a conversation you need to have. It's part of them growing up in this society, and it's true. So it could be that it's just overlooked because they're not thinking about it. But as you were talking, I remember another family, a mum told me about their child who was a minority. They're a white child, a minority in a black team, and they were like to their mum, why can't I be black? So it's not necessarily that it's racism, but even just the topic of difference and race, when you are the odd one out, it can make you ask questions or think about things in a certain way, whether you're white or black, and how do you have that conversation so it's not awkward or seems like it's antagonistic because we're talking about race, but actually just to talk about difference.
Yeah. Maybe families from ethnic minorities, like I said, are maybe potentially more proactive to have those types of conversations. So then those children know how it might feel and know it's an important topic. Whereas some of the other families, they might be thinking, okay, yeah, we don't need
just
this.
have more of an awareness.
Yeah.
But like, I'm just thinking in academies, if the white children are the minority, potentially the black players wouldn't use that and end up becoming racist or making any racist comments to the white player because they've been educated earlier in the process. That's maybe what.
Yeah, or they've experienced it, and so they know what it already feels like.
Right.
Not to say that it can't happen to someone who's not an ethnic minority in this country.
Yeah.
But they could be one of the reasons, maybe perhaps why it may be less likely if it was the other way around. But not to say that it definitely can't happen, because I'm sure it can.
I'm just going to interrupt the podcast for 30 seconds to tell you about We Make Footballers. We Make Footballers are the largest football coaching provider to children aged 4 to 12 in the UK, operating across 200 facilities. We focus on developing the individual, working on the technical and physical components of the game, and it's had amazing results, with hundreds of our ex-players joining professional academies and 4 of our ex-players currently playing in the Premier League. Our program is built around small-sided play using indoor and outdoor facilities. Visit our website, wemakefootballers.com, to see if we have a training facility in your area. For our audience, because we've got to know each other over the last couple of years, I guess. We first met with your younger son, Zach, who's a signed Chelsea player. You spent quite a bit of time training Zach, Marcelo.
Yeah, so I had the pleasure of coaching Zach all through, his under-8 season. And he is an unbelievable kid. He is the politest young man you would ever know. Honestly, so really well spoken, articulates himself really well. Just such a pleasant boy, and he's obviously very talented.
Yeah,
as well.
he's a top player.
footballer.
So I remember, when we first met, it was down at the We Make Footballer session in Carshalton, close to where you live, and I happened to be there. I saw Zach. I was like, oh, he looks a really good player. I wonder how old he is. I hope he's year 1. Went over to you guys. Was like, oh, hey, I'm Sean, work at Chelsea, da-da-da. And then I think I very quickly discovered that he'd already been scouted by Fiona.
Fiona.
Me and Fiona, we battle, and it was. I couldn't believe it as well, because I thought I found him quite early. Yeah, exactly.
I think it was even at summer reception. But because we've known Fiona for a long time through Jeriah.
Oh yeah, so she scouted. Yeah. And that's kind of a rule that scouts have. Where if they've scouted the older brother, then the younger brother is off limits from other scouts. But Zach is obviously such a super talented player. So you've got 2 children in academy football.
Yes.
What has been your experience over the years being in academy football like this?
Oh gosh, so it's been actually very different going into the academy system with our 2 boys. So they're 2 out of my 4 children, my eldest 2, and I want to say that having academy footballers takes logistics and parenting and juggling to a whole nother level. So you can imagine with 4 children plus 2 academy footballers. With Jeriah, we fell into academy football. Honestly, we didn't know that under-9 signing was a thing until we got an offer from Brighton. We had no idea. We just knew that he enjoyed it. He'd been scouted. He was part of the Chelsea development. He was on the A team and for his grassroots team. But Jeriah is also very academic. So he was doing both studying. He loves to study, and then doing his football as well. And then he was also the cohort that got an offer through COVID as well. So that's kind of how we fell into it. We're like, oh my gosh, okay, what does that mean? What does this mean? With Zachary being our second son, so having the advantage of being the second, playing, so he was probably more advanced than Jeriah was at that age. It became very apparent that scouts are everywhere, and every time Zachary played, I think he didn't play properly until probably 5 because of Jeriah. So obviously on Saturdays we were at grassroots games, so he didn't get to do you know, the little, like, even we make footballers at a young age. We did a stint at Coulsdon. You had a Coulsdon Centre.
Right, okay.
And we did a short stint, but it was just too much for us focusing on Jeriah. And then at 5, I remember we got him his first kit and we're like, we're going to take you to football on Saturday. And he was like, me? Like, me? Am I going to go to football? Like, you? It's like, not Jeriah. And I remember the first time we took him to a session, it was actually an Arsenal coach. We didn't know that at the time, but he was running the session. He came over and was like, how old is your son?
Yeah.
He is. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And so it was clear, if your child, you know, demonstrates a certain level of talent at that young age, you will see the scouts everywhere. And so it was a bit different for the 2 boys. But yeah, it's a journey. We love it. I love being a football mum. I wasn't into football at all before my children played. I was not into football. I would watch the World Cup, watch Ghana, watch England. That's it. But now I'm like, the beautiful game. So my husband is like, who have I married? But I love it.
And Jeriah, did you train up Zachary?
Yeah, we would do cone drills. We would also like go into the garden, play football, and we even asked Daddy to make some drills for us to do in the garden, and we would do it together. He would take loads of shots against me, but the only thing is that whenever I take shots, it has to be like
Soft
light.
bits. Yeah.
And Jeriah is a forward striking player, so we would be like, Zachary, Jeriah, take it easy. Don't hurt your brother.
But I'm sure you still get competitive.
Yeah.
And so that sounds a little bit what you're doing now with him. And like, he's obviously a talented Chelsea player, having done loads and loads of training. But do you remember, were you even training him, because there's 3 years apart, isn't there?
Yeah.
Were you training him when he was little, when he was only like 3 or even 2? Do you remember?
I don't quite remember, but I don't think I was training him that much because I only kind of started football at around Zachary's age.
Yeah, like 4, 5.
Yeah, and it wasn't really like, it was more futsal than football. It was more like indoors.
Yeah, but they used to play, like, just, we have many balls in the house, but like, you know, the soft air balls, and they'll just be in my kitchen, taking shots at each other, 1v1s.
Breaking stuff.
Yeah, breaking things. But I have another son who's 3 now, and Jeriah will get cones out and be like, Elias, do this, or he will get cones out. If Jeriah is like, the other day on Sunday, Jeriah took cones out just to do his own footwork training, so then Elias got cones out to also copy Jeriah. So
And then Zachary
will join. So our third, his football knowledge is amazing because he's always around. Yeah.
Well, that's probably where Zach, you know, he's seen you play and he's, you know, he's just watching, but he's taking all that information in. So, you know, you trained him up.
Yeah.
You trained him up.
Yeah, sometimes it can be conscious training, which is like drills and cones. Yeah. But maybe you might have been influencing your little brother when you started, and you would just go out to the garden and play and shoot, and he probably really looks up to you, like, you know, the heroes in the book, and then he probably followed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Really?
Definitely.
And through play, just play.
Yeah.
Just playing.
Yeah. No, Zachary looks up to Jeriah a lot, and I remember even, like, when Jeriah got signed, it was borderline a little bit jealousy, but like, oh, I want to get signed as well. I was like, well, then Zachary, you have to work hard. This is Jeriah's time. So I think just having a tangible role model to see the next stage helps as well, because then signing for a Cat 1 club is reachable. My brother's done it. I can do it as well. Whereas if you never, no one in your family has walked that path, it could be a bit more like, could I ever do that? Yeah.
And I remember at the time it was tough for us because was Zach getting swayed to join Brighton?
Yeah, so
really early.
So Brighton offered Zachary really early, and we have had a really good experience at Brighton. So it was a real contender for us. Do we take them to the same club, or do we split them?
Easier.
Yeah.
I remember that, and we were adamant. No, he's got to stay with us.
Yeah, but you can understand why a parent might be considering it, because I'm sure it must be difficult for you having 2 kids in academy football at different clubs. Like, how do you manage to travel?
So, luckily, I think it's literally they train on different days, apart from now, one day, which is a Thursday. But at the time, it it meant that we just had football Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Wow. So, yeah. And so, but we were carpooling with Jeriah. So we did have some other families that would we had a rota system. So I'd say having a community, like be friendly on the sideline, be friendly, get to know your local parents as well, and build a relationship where you can, so that where you need help, you can ask for it. And it makes sense. I honestly believe that it's important to also let your children get on with it as well. So even in the under-9 season, like both Alex and I are not at every single training session, but I don't think we need that. And sometimes, because of our commitments, I know we're going to talk about a bit later, he might take the bus to a match. So last Sunday he went to Bournemouth with the coaches and with the coach, and we feel fine to let him go on his own, because we feel like they need to also get that independence to know what to do when we're not there. And so for us, building a community in Chelsea, and obviously Zachary's younger, so we're getting him settled into the academy system, but Jeriah's under 12s now, so we're fine with him occasionally taking the bus if he needs to, or going with other people.
But that will be dropped at the training ground by car, and then the team bus. Or getting the bus from Coulsdon to Brighton.
Yeah, so
you'll get the bus from.
Yeah, so Brighton have a bus system where they pick up from Coulsdon South Station.
Oh, okay.
Which is literally
Loads
5 minutes.
Different places.
Yeah, and different places as well.
Yeah.
But 5 minutes from our house. So where it's possible, because of the time Jeriah finishes school, it's not always possible for him to take the bus. We're happy for him to take the bus.
Cool.
But yeah, we need to drive there. Otherwise.
I just want to go back to the conversation we were having around the siblings. Do you think that if you're an only child or you're their elder, you're at a disadvantage?
I just think that if you're the only child, it's up to the parents to create sort of an environment where, he does potentially is around other children, where they can play loads and get loads of practice in. But I do understand your point where, if you have an older, you can look up to someone. There's someone always around the house where you can play fight or just play with. And so physically you might develop earlier. Like you said, it's tangible and targets where you're like, that's achievable. So I do get that. I think it's up to the parents to create the environment.
Yeah. I mean, I think the main thing at the young ages is just that ball mastery, like your child loving the ball, knowing how it feels, what it feels like. So you can have that as a single child. I mean, in my house, someone like Zachary, he's brushing his teeth, the ball is on his foot. He's good.
Really?
Like, you don't take the ball with you all the time. But then there is that advantage of always getting touches. So Elias probably gets more touches than the average 3-year-old, just because there's always balls in the house. He sees his brothers, he wants to copy them, or Jeriah might say, let's do some passing, and he's practicing passing, and they can have that any time of the day. So there is that advantage, but I think the main thing, whether an only child or you have siblings, is just that ball being comfortable with the ball at your foot is just the key thing.
So that's up to the parents to have that in the house, balls, and be encouraging to always be playing with the ball.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. I think that in the long journey of becoming a footballer, the sort of autocratic type of teaching, which might be the parent saying to a child, look, we've got to go to the park, we've got to do some organised practice, we've got to dribble between these cones, we've got to touch the ball, we've got to get ball touches in. Essentially, the child is being told what to do. And that might happen when they go to a training session with adults, and adults telling them what to do, and they've been at school all day and the teachers have been telling them what to do. Go here, get in this line, do this. That gets tiring. I think that children want to escape from that and get a certain amount of just freedom. So if the children what you're describing, where brushing the teeth, getting touches in, it's all play. So then, when they're going into environments where they are being told, right, you've got to do this, they're maybe a bit fresher for it.
Yeah.
And they can endure it a bit longer. I think that's an interesting...
No, it's funny you should say that. With my experience, my boy will actively say to me, why don't I get some time where I want to do what I want to do and get the choice? And I was like, fair enough. Right? At times there is a time and a place, and you have to. So yeah, I get that. I understand that. It was the other day. I was going to a coaching session for his age group. going to work. But I was supposed to be going to an event after. And he said to me, "Oh, am I going to training?" And my response was, "No, because I've got to go to an event." But then I thought, actually, he's asking me, you know, when you talk about the child going, "No, I want to do it."
Yeah. So
I actually went, "All right, I'm not going to go to the event. Go on then, you go to training." And it actually so happened it was one of the best training sessions he's ever had.
Wow.
But it's difficult part I feel is getting them to that stage where they go, "I want to do it," not because so and so is telling me. I think that's like a real light bulb moment, because now, go on then, go and practice, go on then, and they can do it off, you know, their own, and they can really take responsibility for their footballing or wherever, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes when we get people on the podcast, the ex-footballers, and it all gets very nostalgic, and they're like, "Oh, in my day, we just went to the parks and we played in the cages and we did," and it's harder to then relate that to this day and age. But you still see, if I go to friends' houses and they've got young children, and some of them, like, if I'm hanging out and then we might come back from a football practice and then I'm at the house, and then some children might go straight into the garden and practice loads, and they've just done practicing the training, but then they're doing even more of their own practice because it's all just play. Whereas there might be others that, right, they've done their organised training in the morning, that's it now, that's all they think about is training, and they don't do the extra stuff.
Yeah.
And I think if you're going to make it, the kid has to have this love, and we're being very careful about the phrase "making it," and I want to ask you about this later.
Okay.
But yeah, to get to a stage where you've got a professional contract, if you're going to do that, you have to be touching the ball all the time, getting so much of your practice in, enjoying it, and the child is seeking it out.
Yeah.
I think advice to parents on that. I need to interrupt the podcast one more time. Did you know that We Make Footballers is a franchise business? We began franchising in 2015, and we now have over 60 franchises in operation across the UK, Dubai, and US, serving over 10,000 players. If you're a talented coach but don't want to start your own coaching business alone, visit franchisewmf.com to find out how We Make Footballers can help you operate a successful football coaching company. Were you a footballer, Jenny?
No. I'm not, and I appreciate, even sometimes I'll be like, "Bring the ball, let me see what." No, my foot is not trained, but I was athletic.
Okay.
So I played netball, hockey, I did athletics. I never actually got the opportunity to play sports. I grew up in Peckham. I went to a local comprehensive school that had no opportunities. Same school as Rio Ferdinand and Anton Ferdinand, primary school.
Right.
Because we met them through Jeriah writing a book, and so we went to I went to the same primary school as them.
Cool.
But I didn't have any really exposure to sports. And then the secondary school that I went to, that's where I discovered, I run quite fast, I can jump quite high, and so I was athletic in school.
And their father, Alex.
Yeah.
What about him? Was he a good footballer?
Yes, so he was a good footballer. So I think he played up to semi-pro, but he wasn't part of an academy system or had those opportunities. But he always actually says that he was a late bloomer. So he said that probably when he was about 13 is when he got good. So he's got a younger brother, my brother-in-law, who I think was probably more naturally good at football. And so I think if I recall the story correctly, he used to also take him out and train him. They grew up in Brixton. And take him. He used to go to a cage in Brixton where men used to play, and they'll wait and be like, they'll wait and see if there's not enough players, and then they'll be like, "Oh, can we play with you?" And that's how they started playing. But my husband said that probably before the age, I think he said 13, 14, he wasn't the best. And then from then, that age is actually where he started blossoming as a footballer. And his dad used to play as well. So his dad used to play in Ghana, and I believe he went to Germany to play for a bit as well. So they've got some football.
The Bundesliga.
Bundesliga. So they've got some
pedigree.
Yeah, they've got some football genetics in their family, or football IQ.
He's tall, your dad, as well, isn't he?
Yeah, he's tall.
Do you know exactly how tall? He's above 6 foot. He must be.
Yeah, he's like 6'1".
6'1", yeah.
And then his brother, the one that he's played, is about 6'2",
Yeah.
and his dad's probably like 6'1".
So, do you think? I mean, I've not seen you play, Jeriah, but seeing Zach play, I would say that he has physical advantages. He's a fast, athletic boy and very agile, he runs smoothly. I mean, would that fit your description as well, Marcelo?
I think his relationship with the ball is really great.
Oh, I'm not saying just because he's physical, he
no,
doesn't have
I
the
know, but I'm
relationship with the ball.
yeah, I know, but that's how I see him.
Oh.
And it helps. Yes, I think like the physical attributes is almost like the glue. You marry the two together, and it's like a fantastic mix. He's just a fantastic player.
Yeah, I feel
Fantastic player.
He's not. So for me, I'm one of the tallest in the group. For him, he's not one of the tallest. So like he's one of those players that are very good with his feet. For me, it's more I need to use my physicality.
Yeah. So they're very two different players, two different physical attributes. Jeriah is, although one of the youngest in his year group, probably you would think he's the oldest if you saw him amongst his age group. Whereas Zachary is not small. He's probably just like average height and he looks small, but he's strong.
He's aggressive.
Good balance.
He's aggressive, yeah. But I think that's also because he's used to playing with his older brother, who is
He wants to like
a bigger
beat
than
me.
average player. He's trained with him. He has always been aggressive, always. So I think he's unassumingly strong. So he can body a big
Because
kid.
he's not, because someone like Elias, in fact, he's
He's more like you.
he's kind of tall for his age, but he's like very strong.
Yeah, he's strong because he's used to having two older brothers.
He would like really fight.
Yeah, give a 3-year-old a run for their money.
Do you think that the boys have had a genetic advantage, like physically suited to football?
Potentially. I mean, as I said, I was athletic. My husband he was a long distance runner, and played football as well. I would say his physique is probably more like Jeriah, I would say. Probably like him.
Yeah, but he plays in the opposite position.
Yeah, but he's a defender.
Yeah.
That could change.
Let's not.
Potentially. I do though see where you're coming from and see your argument where sometimes you can see, even if a player has not had the technical training, you can see that they are more coordinated. They can run faster. It is an attribute, to be honest. There are athletic genes, twitch muscles, all of those things that do play a part in whether a child is going to be able to, be in the first team, not even just say first team, but the A team versus the C team, even if you think about school football. So they are sporty and more athletic, I would say. That is going to play into their advantage. And it's how they work that is how far they will go.
Marcelo, do you have any thoughts on this topic?
It
It comes back around over and over. We see the people in the comments.
No, I think it potentially gets your foot in the door.
Yeah.
In, like you say, the A team or whatnot. It's then, like you said, if a kid is just going to be reliant on that, in years to come, that might not be enough. So they need to make sure they keep on top of their technical, the game IQ, that side of it develops as well.
Yeah.
Because, as the children, physically they might catch up to each other, and then that might not be the determining factor anymore, or that might not be their super strength anymore.
Yeah.
If they don't have the other tools to work.
And I think we also need to understand, for parents that are listening, that at the age of 8, 9, they're playing 5-a-side, 7-a-side. When the pitch gets bigger, everything will change. And so, yes, even your child might be that superstar on a 5-a-side pitch because they can dribble through everybody and shoot. But on an 11-side pitch, do they have the football IQ? Is even more. So I think it's also in stages. And all you can do is train your child to be effective at the stage that they're at, and then look at the next challenge and what is important as the pitch gets bigger, as 9-a-side, 11-a-side. Because also the positions start to change as well. So I think sometimes parents get so carried away. You hear them at 5-a-side, 7-a-side, and it's like, we've got a few years to really see how this is going to play out.
It's really interesting that you say around the next challenges, because Khalil, his dad, who's a friend of mine, I remember him telling me about what he would go through when he would jump from 7-a-side to 9-a-side when he started playing the year up.
Yeah.
And he said that he noticed that by the time he got to the position to shoot, he was tired. And so then he was reflecting off that, and then he then started to do training sessions where he would work him from the halfway line on a nine-a-side pitch, get him to the point to then make a strike, and he'd repeat that over and over and over. So it'd start just conditioning his body to be able to cope with the nine-a-side, because he was seeing how effective he was at 7, where he would get to the box, he'd be fine to strike, he wouldn't be out of breath. But he was noticing his body was literally physically tired on a nine-a-side. I thought it was quite interesting.
I think that's why there are stages. That's why it's set like that at those different age groups, because of the physicality and the demands it puts on children. And it makes for an easier transition, I guess.
7-a-side to 9 to 11 is a really big jump. When you're playing 9-a-side, for me now, it feels like normal. And I'll go back to 7-a-side for like a game or two, and I'll be like, oh, it's really smart, I can shoot from anywhere. But then when I played 11-a-side once, I was like, geez, it's not easy, because there's a lot of running, especially when you're playing striker.
I guess that's where the football IQ comes. You just mentioned that, Jenny. And when you said football IQ, I was thinking, more around, their legs. Have they got the legs to cope? But some of it's also your decision making, when to run. Because you don't want to just burn yourself out on a bigger pitch. You need to have that IQ to understand how to manage the game. With IQ, that's something that I want to touch on. So, I've got some theories that I think that academic IQ can be transferable to football IQ. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes. I don't think always necessarily. So, I think it helps. I think if you have the intellectual IQ, it helps with taking information in. It helps you if the coaches are giving you information. Hopefully, you can retain it, execute it. I think to be coachable, essentially. And I probably see that with Jeriah, that he can do that. He's quite intelligent and smart. I think coaches like to work with him for that reason. Even when you're in his review, the way that they're analysing the game, the questions that they asked, I think they like how he responds. So that makes a coach like you for that reason. But then I'd say like Zachary is probably not as academic as Jeriah, but his football IQ is very good. He knows how to play. And that's something that he is a player that can dribble through everybody and shoot, but he will assess and do what he thinks is right. And some of the passes that he'll make is like, okay, Zach. And I remember actually the first time in a grassroots game, it was under 7's game. And I remember him going into the box and crossing it for someone to shoot. And I was like, Zachary, why did you not shoot? Why did you take the shot? And he was like, because that player is in a better position, mummy. They're going to shoot. And at under 7s, he's thinking about crossing because he thinks it's maximising the chances of his team scoring. At 7-year-olds are thinking, I'm getting the glory. I'm scoring the goals. Zachary's thinking about sweaties. That's what he's telling me about.
That's so cool.
At 8 years old. He'll tell you that I'm a playmaker. That's what he will tell you. So no, I'm a playmaker. That's what I do. And sometimes I think it can even be frustrating because sometimes people might not be there yet in understanding the game. So for him, sometimes it might not always work out how he thinks it should in his head because maybe the other child didn't get it, what he was trying to do. They're looking at him thinking that you're going to take a shot and he's crossed it to you because the goalkeeper's next to him and they're not ready for it. So I don't think it always translates. I genuinely think that some people just know how to play. I don't know. Marcelo, you're a coach. Have you seen that? Like some people just know how to play.
I completely understand. No, I completely understand where you're coming from. I think it goes back to how they perceive things. Yeah. And some kids just take to things differently to others. What you described as Zach, I was just nodding my head because I was like, yep, I've seen this. I remember we done a training session on, even it was just possession. And he was unbelievable, and he was just making good decisions. So yeah, I completely understand. I would agree. I would agree with you. I do think it's through the experiences they've had, it might be a specific player that they'd like to watch who is a playmaker or makes good decisions, and that's what they like to see. So you might watch a game and be like, a kid might go, oh, what a fantastic dribble shot. Where another kid might be like, no, that pass was really good. Does that make sense? So they take to different things. And through that it shapes who they want to be as a player and how they play.
Yeah.
Because
on the flip side, Sean, you won't always get the most academic person who can translate game understanding. So I think some of it is a gift. I do think some of it is a gift. But it's hard. It's hard.
I do some coaching at a grammar school, and you get some incredibly unbelievable. They are so academic, but you go and do sports and you go and play football, and it doesn't translate. It's not the same. But they could go on to be doctors
but that might not be the tools to use their techniques. But if you talk to those academic children about tactics and you really taught them, then
they could make a good manager. But they could make a good manager and not a good player.
In some cases, yeah. Again, some just take to it. They take to it differently. And from a really young age, I feel.
And sometimes it's also training. I mean, like, my husband does training with the boys where he gets them to see triangles. So he might be like in my kitchen. My kitchen's quite big, so they do a lot of football there.
Yeah.
But they'll be doing, I don't fully understand everything, but he'll be doing like passing things with them where they're moving around. But he's telling them, look at see triangles. Jeriah, I don't know.
Well, not see. It's more like
okay.
There'll be like 3 cones and you'd be doing passing through them.
Yeah, but then also sometimes with Daddy and Zachary, you guys are passing and moving and trying to think about the next play. So
where you think they're gonna.
Yeah.
There was a book that I read called Limitless by Jim Quick, and this was years ago. And he's a guy who describes himself as the child with the broken brain, because when he was a kid, he was climbing up a radiator at school when he might have been like 5 years old. He tripped over, banged his head on the radiator, had brain injuries, and his teacher once then referred to him in front of all his friends that, oh, he can't learn this because he's the child with the broken brain, because he was really struggling at school. Then this was horrible, a really hard time for him. Later on in his life, he met this really cool teacher who took an interest in him and got him to change his perspective and said, don't say to yourself that you've got a broken brain. You can learn this stuff. You just need the right tools. And then he found all these different techniques and methods to get him to hold memory and get him to be able to learn things well. And now this guy has broken all these Guinness records for memory, he's written all these books, he's a speaker, he's done TED Talks. Definitely someone to look into. And I found it really inspiring when I heard that and read that book. And I'm all about, if people have listened to a lot of these podcasts, you'll know how much I care about environment and culture and the influence it can have on footballers and practice hours. And so the experience that I've had with training players, I've seen kids who came to us at 6 years old, 7 years, whatever it was, and with the right program and the right environment, they have got into academies. And sometimes you would never have expected it, never thought it, but they've really committed to the program and they achieved these great results. So I got very fixed on an idea that football intelligence and game IQ absolutely could be taught. I kind of thought that the only thing that is genetic is your physicality. There are ceilings there, and loads of that can get worked on.
Is there a ceiling in game IQ?
Well, recently, where I've done more and more research on it, there is a lot of research and there's a lot of evidence that says that IQ, just IQ in general, is genetic.
Do you think?
Well, this is what if people really research it, there is evidence that said, your intelligence and your IQ is passed down from your parents and your family. And so I was a bit disappointed. I was disappointed in that because I was thinking, oh man, that means the ceiling. But I think a lot of people they've got the hardware, but they still don't do all. They can push themselves so much further. They don't push themselves hard enough. to test their ceilings. But the evidence that I picked up says that you can't train yourself to be Einstein.
Yeah, that's true. But I think that it could be genetic. However, you can push yourself and train yourself to become smarter for the next generation of people.
And I think some of it as well, just what you're saying about the next generation, is what habits do you see as well in your house? Like, a reader will see a reader.
Yeah.
So
what they're exposed
what
to.
they're exposed to. What they're exposed to that could may seem
Trigger.
that what could trigger an interest in certain areas. The brain is a muscle, like your hamstring, like your calf muscle. They can be trained. Because who knows that if we've even scratched the surface of what we can know. We don't know. If we trained ourselves, we no social media, no iPads, no nothing, no. If we just were reading all the time or practicing, who knows the limit? Yeah. So the limit can be, there could be a limit, but who knows the extent of how high?
So link it back to your question on...
Well, the question that I wanted to link into now was that I'm aware that you went to Cambridge University, which is one of the hardest universities to go into. I've had friends that have been to Oxford, and I know how hard it is.
Yeah.
How much do you think you going through that degree, was that your hard work, or were you gifted with some, blessed genetics?
So I think it's definitely both. So my dad is very intellectual. He didn't go to Cambridge or anything like that, but he is someone who's very intellectual, and he taught us though. So I grew up in Peckham, 11 plus. My dad taught us. He was my first teacher. And so I saw that from him, the value of learning. And that was a value that I took into my own education. And I knew how hard my parents worked to get me to where I was. So in school, I knew my mission, I knew my goal, my A stars and my A's. I know why I'm here. Was I good at everything? Not everything. On paper, yes, it shows, but I worked hard. So something like English and German, I got A stars in them. They were not my favourite subjects. I did not always get the top marks. I was not the top of the class for those things. But I understood that this is my season where I need to learn those things. I will do the best that I can. I'm not going to write those subjects off because I have to do them. I will do the best I can. So I think I also had a mentality, hardworking as well. And yeah, I got a first class in Cambridge. I actually got meningitis before my final exams. Which is an infection of the fluids that govern your brain and spine. So that one is my faith. We'll come back to that.
We'll have a clap now, please.
We'll come back to that.
Come on.
But I was a hard worker as well. But were there people at Cambridge who didn't work hard and probably could have just got it? There probably were. So I think genetically, yes, some people are smarter than others, but you can also work hard as well. And I want to also say that academics is not the be-all and end-all of life as well. So just because if you see that your child is not the most academic, or you aren't at academics and now you're worried about, your brood coming through, academics is not everything as well. So how do you identify the talents of your children? And I've got 4. So one of my challenges is to not put them all in the same bracket as myself. They're all going to go to Cambridge because I went to Cambridge. I need to identify, what are their talents and hone in on them and let them feel confident in where they shine. Every single child, every single person has a gift. And it may not be the typical ones, but as a parent, you need to find it.
I love that answer. Being an academic, did you struggle a little bit to see your children committing so much time into elite sport?
Yeah.
Because they must be taking their practice hours away from their education. That must be happening.
Definitely. Like, I think Jeriah being my first, and sometimes even there's tug of war in my house. Like, I'll be like, Zachary, come and do your maths. And his dad say, Zach, come and do some codes. I'm like, can you come and do the maths, please, first? So definitely it was hard. But then I played a lot of sport at secondary school. And I went to boarding school. Actually, I got a scholarship to go to boarding school. And so I enjoyed my secondary school years because of my sport. So I worked so hard, but it didn't feel like I was always working because I was playing netball, I was playing hockey. And I also value the role that sports can play to be an outlet for your children to work hard. So Jeriah is academic. He works hard, but then he gets to go to Brighton 3 times a week and have fun. He's not always doing his academic works, but academics are important to him. Jeriah gets 90% in the maths test. He's crying that it's not good enough. Like, that's the type of kid that he is. But he's not always doing that. And I think that's also important. Whether your child is going to be a professional footballer or not, find something that they can do to balance. They need to learn to balance. Like, I see it so much that people think that all their child can do is just academics. And I'm an academic, but I enjoyed my academics. I got 10A stars without feeling like I was working for 10A stars because I was doing other things. So I do think it's also important to have that balance, but it is hard. And Jeriah, being my first, he is more inclined to do. I remember my husband and I went on holiday. He was staying with this when he was a bit younger, staying with my sister-in-law, and he was asking, "Can I do some work?" Like, that's the kind of kid he is. So Zachary's not asking you to do. He'll say, "Yeah, that's good for you." He's not asking that. So I have to. It's different. So I have to raise Zachary in a different way to get that out of him. And it's about also learning that about your children as well, especially when they're elite sports people as well.
It works the other way as well. We see it the other way where it's just football.
Yeah.
And then they also need something away from that as a way to get their mind off it and do other things.
Yeah.
Finding that balance.
Yeah, I think that, coming off what my mum said, for me, it was like, I need to, because I was going to do the 11 plus and 10 plus. It was like, I need to do this and get into this school.
Yeah.
I would set my mind for this thing and I'll do it.
Yeah.
Because I'll be in the morning, 6:30. Wait, was it 6:30? What time? Around then, I'll wake up. My mum will wake me up and I'll do English till 7 and then maths until 7:30. Then I'll get ready for school and then I'll go.
And what was the voice in your head saying to you when you were choosing to do that work?
Well, I got used to it, so it just became natural for me to wake up at that time.
But was something saying to you, I want to get into this school, I want to pass that exam, I know that I need to practice?
The school that I go to, that I wanted to go to. Well, I originally wanted to go to a different school, but then I saw all the opportunities at to school Whitgift that I go to now.
Oh, yeah.
And I felt, it could balance out my academic and my sport.
Wow.
However, the other school, it was still sporty, but it was more academic, isn't it? It was just academic mainly. And I felt it was still a really good school, but I wanted to go to...
So you had a goal to get into this really strong school, and you knew you had to pass some exams to get into the school.
Yeah.
And then you knew that you would have to wake up early, do this work that would prepare you to pass the exam.
Yeah.
You had that understanding and you were committed to it.
Yeah.
That's very cool. And you obviously, you must see the same thing with football, that you've got a goal and, it's to keep getting signed, I'm assuming, at Brighton, keep getting the contract again. And then with that as a goal, it means that you do keep practicing and working hard.
Yeah.
I don't mean to put words in your mouth. I'm just trying to understand what you're, how you're, because other parents can then learn from you and they can then start to think about how they can maybe apply the same practices or motivations for their children, or they may not want to. Did you ever feel any pressure at any time?
I felt that for my end of year grades, I had to get basically what my mum got. I felt I had to get all 8. I knew on some subjects though, things that I wouldn't do when I'm older, I knew that, am I going to progress on it, or am I going to, because you can drop subjects.
Okay.
Am I going to progress on that subject, or am I just going to leave it? So I didn't feel too much pressure, but I felt for the main subjects like maths, English, science, I had to do really good on it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. What's your view on pressure, Jenny?
Pressure is in life, so you need to learn how to deal with it. And I think it's also about knowing it's for a season. So my approach to exams, I knew if I'm doing my AS levels at the time, I need to revise for this season, it'll be pressure, but the pressure is going to be relieved once I finish. I think having that perspective of knowing that it's only for a certain time, what decision am I going to make in that? But pressure is part of life. So I think even for schools, I guess like the one that Jeriah goes to, they do end of year exams. They do a lot of tests because they want them to get used to pressure. So I think you have to train your child. And even with football as well, I was going to say about football IQ and decision making, it's not just about decision making, it's actually decision making under pressure, because you can teach them how to make the decisions, teach them the tactics, but then when someone comes to press you, what are you going to do? And you can't play out every scenario that's going to happen on a pitch. So what's actually important is when it happens with opposition and pressure. And so I think it's something that we just have to teach our children how to deal with that mechanism. How do you revise? There's actually a technique to revision. Like I'm good at taking exams. I can tell you that I'm good at taking exams, but I had to learn that. And then how do you, in the exam hall, in the room, in your trial, like how do you perform when all eyes are on you, when it matters the most? Do you crumble or can you? And so they have to learn those things. So it's part of life.
Love that answer. Great answer. I'm just going to interrupt the podcast for 30 seconds to tell you about We Make Footballers. We Make Footballers are the largest football coaching provider to children aged 4 to 12 in the UK, operating across 200 facilities. We focus on developing the individual, working on the technical and physical components of the game, and it's had amazing results, with hundreds of our ex-players joining professional academies and 4 of our ex-players currently playing in the Premier League. Our program is built around small-sided play using indoor and outdoor facilities. Visit our website, wemakefootballers.com, to see if we have a training facility in your area. What do you think Jeriah has learned from the process of creating this book? Because you're now in the process where it's published. I mean, for those who are listening to this, I'm literally holding this amazing book in my hand. It's lovely illustrations. It's brilliant. I've seen... It's been on the Brighton social media. Rio Ferdinand was promoting it. You've been on ITV News last week.
Yeah.
So you're really going through the process of promoting it, which is fantastic. But yeah, what do you think he's learned from this?
Yeah, so I think the process, when Jeriah committed to writing the book over the summer holidays, at first there was excitement to write the book. He split the book into what would be his chapters, and he was very excited. Probably, quite enthusiastic at first to get the first couple of chapters, and in the middle it's like, Jeriah, is chapter 4 done? Chapter 5? Oh, mummy, yeah, I need to write it. The deadline's got to push. I think like anything in life, the beginning is always easy.
Yeah.
The beginning, you're excited. You got that,
something new.
Excited. Yeah, something new. You got the motivation.
Like,
and then the middle, the motivation wanes. And it wasn't easy. And then like also getting criticism. Like, oh, Jeriah, yeah, but maybe you can make it a bit better. Do you want to go back and look at this? And being able to take that criticism to edit yourself, edit your product, edit yourself is also not easy. So I think he's probably learned that as well through the process. But then the satisfaction of finishing it, when you finish the book, is like, okay, it's finished, but then it wasn't
but then
the
you
end.
have to realise that you got the illustrations.
Yeah, so you've got the illustration.
Where you're going to put it, what font you're going to use. I'm like,
yeah, so
even
the process of getting the story to become a book, he's learned about that. So once he'd finished writing it, we had to get it professionally edited, and there was some feedback that would come, and we'd have to review that feedback. All the illustrations, we had an amazing helper, a creative designer, who helped us read the book and say where she thinks the illustrations will be effective. Jeriah, do you agree with that? Even some of the illustrations, once the illustrator, we would just tell her where we want the illustrations, and she would do a version, and I would show Jeriah. And I remember the scene where the player in the book misses the goal. He's taking she sent it. It looked like he was just taking a great shot, and Jeriah was like, he's taken a shot and he's just missed. But in the book, it says that he slipped and he took a shot. So Jeriah was like,
the original one was like he was singing insane shot, like a bicycle kit.
And Jeriah was like, he's just taken a shot, but he's just missed. So we had to go back to tell her, actually, can you do it so that it looks like he slipped? And so even just those finer details, Jeriah had to learn. Or Jeriah would be like, oh, I don't like, I think she gave like a little cut in an eyebrow, like a shave. Like Jeriah was like, don't like that. So
yeah, it was because Laurie Cunningham back then, it looked a bit, it looks a bit too modern.
So having that kind of opinion is his product, and even I'll be like, oh, but Jeriah's fine. He'll be like, if she can change it. So that kind of negotiation skills,
good attention to detail.
Yeah, good attention to detail, and then and then seeing it come to life. Yeah, getting it printed and all of the good stuff, and then the promotion of the book, getting interviewing, speaking, all of those good things. He's honing his craft in that way.
And you're 11 years old.
11 and a half.
Love it.
Okay, if you wanna say that.
So you're a footballer, an author. Would you also say that you're a businessman as well?
Not yet,
Okay.
because I feel,
Has it cost money to make this book?
yeah, a lot. So it's like, but the only thing is that once you it costs a lot of money to actually make the book. The illustrations, you have to get the professional cover, someone to, the pages, how it's like a bit different.
How it feels.
Yeah, so it costs a lot of money. So you kind of earn that money back.
Through selling the
Jenny,
book.
can I ask how much, or you want to hold back?
I would need to go to my accounting, my figures.
But I do know so we have 500
Yeah,
printed copies and that.
yeah, so 500.
It was £2 a copy, but 500 of them is a lot.
£1,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then also the illustrations cost a lot. So
Yeah,
the cost
just
of
as
doing an
much.
illustration, each illustration depends on how big the illustration is, the detail of the illustration, if there's background or not background, getting it copy edited as well. So a professional editor, you need to pay for that. So it's not just a printing cost.
It would be so much easier if we just had family that had all these things.
Yeah, had
and
all
then
the capabilities
yeah.
and skills to keep it
Yeah,
in-house, but
just-
we had to outsource.
Yeah.
Do you see the things that you're learning though in this process? So, this is business, where
Yeah.
you said, oh, I'm not a businessman. You literally are a businessman because you're
Yeah, I guess
invested
so.
in something. You've created this, and then,
Oh, yeah,
hopefully
'cause
you'll be able to get the money back and
it'd be a
maybe
good
even make some profit.
Yeah. And I've also felt, and it also cost a lot. Well, it didn't cost a lot, but for Amazon, how it's on Amazon, it doesn't cost a lot to put it on there and stuff. But
They
how much
take a
you
lot of-
get?
yeah.
They take a lot of the money that you actually get.
And Jenny, have you thought about this for wider learning for the children? You touched on it earlier, where you were advising parents to think about what the children are learning, not necessarily just academically or even in sport. But is that something that you've thought about for the children to succeed in later life?
Definitely. And I think, so we've actually set up his own publishing house. So his publishing house has published the book, and we can also publish other children's books as well. So that was even a process to learn about how you do that. But I think it's also important that if your child is an elite sportsman, they also learn about squiggly careers, in the sense that you're not always going to be the same thing. Like I initially started in investment banking. I work in consulting. I also do my other things. I'm also a pastor. My husband and I are pastors. So it's not just the one thing that you're ever going to be in life. I got the privilege of meeting Ronaldo at Cannes, as in the original Ronaldo, the Brazilian one. And now he owns a club. He's a man. All of these other things. He was a footballer, but he also now has had to learn business. And so even I tell the boys, yeah, you can be a footballer, but what else do you want to be? What else do you want to learn? And I myself, I'm a product of opportunity. So for my son to win this award, and the book being what it's about, know that I'm going to seize the opportunity, because he needs to also understand that times and seasons, seize the opportunity as well. And so even with academy football, some people might say, but, are they going to make it? What's the likelihood? But it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to develop themselves, even what they get to do. Not every average child will be able to experience what they experience. So whilst we're here, we're going to make the most of it. And that's kind of my approach to life, to this book, to what Jeriah wants to do. He's a publisher, he's an author, he's an academy footballer, he's a student. Make the most of what you have.
Opportunities, yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's really important.
I love it. When we were talking earlier and I used the phrase making it, and then I caught myself and I said, we're being careful about saying making it, because the episode we did last week, we had this guy who'd done all this research. He's got the largest amount of research on players going from academy football to become footballers. Wow, it's such an eye-opener. The stats are so hard.
wow.
Yeah, literally, well, once you get a professional contract, the average player will move clubs 5 times in the next 5 years after 18. Yeah. And then the chances of making it, if you're at making it, again, we're using that phrase, but getting a professional contract, if you get signed at an academy at under 8s, he said the chances were 0.6% from that stage. Yeah. If you're not signed at an academy, your chances drop massively. There's all this data, and it was really, really interesting. So the conversation went around reframing what is making it. And one of the things we said was, can you get to a professional contract? Maybe you get to a Category 1 club and you can earn £300,000 in a year in that first contract. Yeah. But then you take that and you save 250 grand, and then that is a nest egg for you to build a life from that point. Maybe there's families who are under 9s, they've got into a Category 1 club, and that club have then put them into a private school or an expensive school. And suddenly that might be the first in that family to ever go to a school like that. And that is making it. Maybe even the player gets to a point where they maybe get released at 16, but 17, they can go out to America, full scholarship, have all that university that's worth £450,000, that might be all paid for. So thinking about approaching professional football and getting your wins from the process and celebrating those realistically within this data and this world that is so hard to get to a point where you're on TV playing in the Premier League.
100%. And that's why even Jeriah's book, this is a win. He wouldn't have done that writing competition unless he was at Brighton or a Premier League competition club. He wouldn't have. So he got that opportunity through being an academy footballer. He's won, and that has given him a platform to now become a published author by the age of 11. That's a win. Seize the opportunity. That is a win. And someone else who might have gone offer at 8 years old might have said, I'm not going to put my child through academy football for whatever reason, but he's got this out of it. And through that, he's had experiences, ITV News, things that he wouldn't have done because of his football platform. And so it honestly is about seizing the opportunity. We don't know. None of us know if we're going to make it or not. But what do you do with the opportunity? Yeah. And that's all you can do.
I think a lot of the experiences that you get from playing in academy football, even if it doesn't work out, you can use that to be successful in so many other areas, and that in itself is a win.
Yeah.
You've mentioned there that you and your husband are pastors.
Yes.
And faith is a big part of your life. How do you think faith has helped the boys in academy football?
So I will let Jeriah answer as well, but I think making them grounded in the value of themselves as a person. You are not valuable because you're good at football. They actually are valuable because God says they're valuable, because they know that they are created by God who loves them regardless of whether they're good at football or not. So now their value is not wrapped up in whether I'm a signed player or not, or whether I'm a good athlete or not. And so I think for me, that's to answer that question, that's probably how it helps them, and it helps me to teach them about resilience, things like what Jeriah experienced, forgiveness, those things. How do they handle setbacks and challenges through the values that we get through our faith? We believe that God has given them the gift, and so we go to the giver of the gift about how to develop, how to hone, how to train. It was not just about the physical attributes, but the mentality, the psyche of the child. I will pray for my children and pray that God will give me the wisdom about how to train them, how to get through to them. If I feel like there's a wall, there's a barrier, God, what shall I do? So and then it's important for them to have their own personal relationship. And that's why for us, we have church in the afternoon. So often you'll see lots of kids in their football kits at kids' church or sometimes they've been playing against each other in the morning. We've had that where grassroots, they'll be like, we just played you. Or say we've got some Brighton Academy players, we've got AFC Wimbledon players. So Zachary plays against his friends at kids' church. And I think it's important that they can be competitive on the pitch, but then afterwards they are brothers. It's like they're brothers. And even I've actually got an Academy Mum prayer group as well. So Academy mums all the way from a first team player's mum to under 9s. And we pray every 2 weeks for our boys and just to protect them and just. And I think having that community, being an academy parent can sometimes be lonely if people don't get it. Because some people are like, oh, it's just football. They may not understand, the intensity of academy football and the challenges as a parent. Yeah. So for us, that Academy Mums prayer group is just, we get to talk about some of the challenges our kids are facing, but celebrate our wins as well with each other, knowing that it's a safe environment to do so. On the sidelines, it can sometimes be, but we have this community where we can do that together.
A safe space.
Yeah.
You gave the example of Zach.
Yeah.
What was he like as an under 8?
Yeah.
in terms of his emotional?
Yeah. So I was telling Marcelo that, Zachary at under 8, we felt he was very emotional in grassroots, just generally, even not just on the pitch, even off the pitch. His teachers would be like, Zachary's great, but sometimes he's very passionate. So sometimes that passion will come through tears, and it's like, Zach, it's okay. So that was something that I was worried about going into an environment like Chelsea. I knew that Zachary has all the attributes, but I was like, this thing, Zachary, if you don't deal with it, that could be your barrier. And I remember writing resilience, what it means, getting him to learn it, and I'll say, what's resilience? And he'll tell you the ability to bounce back quickly from challenges. And I would encourage him, Zachary, so you need to be resilient. But over this season, the season is we're just halfway through the season, but he has really taken that on, and shows a great mentality now, shows great resilience now. And sometimes I'll tell him, Zachary, if you are emotional on the pitch, pray, ask God to help you to not cry or to be able to deal with that emotion. And I'm just so happy that his mentality is A1 at the moment, and may it long continue.
Well, you said that he went to a report yesterday with Chelsea, and they commended his mentality and said that it's really high scoring.
Yeah, and that for me was the greatest win, because that was the area where I was like, oh, going into under 9s, how will he be? And so it's good to hear that. And it also gave me confidence that he's in the right environment as well, because he's been able to develop that. And it's an area where I was concerned, but he's thriving. So I'm really happy about that.
And you think his relationship with God has contributed to that?
I do think so. Zachary and Jeriah, they love God. They love going to church. Even sometimes, say it's around Easter, Zachary will be like, am I missing church? Am I missing church? Or this Sunday, we usually have afternoon service. But this Sunday, we had a morning service, and he was going to Bournemouth, and he was like, am I missing in the morning? He didn't realise. I was like, am I not going to church because I'm going to Bournemouth? So for them, it's a big deal. Certain things.
I mean, you've got a 11-year-old superstar at Brighton, a 9-year-old with Zach.
He's 8.
He's still 8. He's still only 8 at Chelsea. You've been in the academy programme now, would you say 4 years?
Nearly 5 years. Yeah, nearly 5 years. So you'll be 12 in June. So nearly 5 years.
Oh, yeah.
What would be the bit of advice that you would like to leave with parents to pass on? What is the most important thing that you think that they need to be aware of, that you've learned
through the academy process and system? I would say you own your child's gift. I think when you are in the academy process, you're trying to get into the system, parents could do everything to try and get into the academy process. And I think relax and know that ultimately you own the child's gift. Where you want them to play, where you want them to go, yes, there'll be entry requirements. There may be some doors that will be open or closed at a certain time. But don't panic that your child's life is in the hands of Chelsea Football Club or Arsenal Football Club. If they can't see what you see, continue to develop it and take your gift. If someone says no, carry your gift and train them elsewhere. If you see something that you feel like they're not seeing that, carry your gift. If you get made redundant from work, carry your gift. If they don't want you, take your gift elsewhere. You have to understand that you are the steward of your gift. And be patient with the process. Children, what I've seen, develop at different stages, at different times. A child who's amazing at 5 years old may not be the number one player at 9 years old. So take time, be humble, but know that you are the steward of your gift. And even if they get released, you are still the steward of teach your child that your gift doesn't mean, because they don't see what you see, doesn't mean that it's over for you. We go again, we work hard, you carry your gift. And I'm really a firm believer in that. And I think that's a lesson that you can apply to any part of your life. You might get made redundant. You might have to, whatever it is, but know that you own your gift. Carry it.
Great message.
Jeriah, your mum is very wise.
Great message.
Do you feel lucky?
Definitely.
Do you ask for her advice a lot? Do you take in the wisdom that she gives you?
All the time.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, I'm certainly buying the book.
Yes.
And I can't wait to read it.
Jeriah,
so
push your book.
congratulations.
You've got the time now to plug your book.
What do you want to say about your book?
Yeah.
Well, my book, it was very Because I already wrote the story.
No, encourage people to buy the book. What do you want them to know
We need
about
to
the
make
book?
some sales. We need to get that money
so
back.
sell
that
the
was
book.
spent.
What do you want to say about the book? Why should someone buy your book?
You should buy the book because it has everything that you need in it from a football point of view and tips, and especially for people that have dealt or seen racism. You could read this book and it will show you why it's important. Why it is important to deal with it correctly.
You'll help facilitate that conversation between parent and child.
And also, if you buy the book, you could also, if you write a book and you're like, oh, I want to publish it, you got publishing company.
Oh, love it.
When's number 2 coming?
Some holidays.
Brilliant.
So is this actually available now to purchase?
Yeah, you can buy it.
Yeah, it's available on Amazon. So you can purchase it on Amazon. Yeah, it's a published book, and it is also a book that you can go to a bookstore and say, do you have Back in Time in store? And they can order it as well. So available everywhere.
And do you want to say, so Back in Time, and then the author's name is?
Jeriah Boateng.
Say
the full
surname.
sentence.
Jeriah Boateng.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Awesome.
It's been awesome.
Thank
you.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like
Great message.
No, it's really, really inspiring, Jeriah. It's so inspiring what you're doing. And you were even ill yesterday evening, I understand.
Yeah.
And then, you firmed it. You were able to get here today, had a little bit of cowpole. But, you came in and you've done such an amazing job speaking to us for all this time.
Yeah,
and
thank you.
Yeah, I'm sure you must be so proud of him. But yeah, our listeners will be really grateful for the time that you've given today, because you've shared so much wisdom. Like, I've learned so much from this conversation. I swear. And we've had so many of the conversations, so I feel like at this stage it's hard to still find ways to learn from this. But I've picked up loads. So thank you so much.
Yeah, it's
Thank
fine.
you very much, guys.
Having us.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.